I'm just an icon living. That's all right there. I'm just an icon. Check this out, right? So I'm gonna let this play out just a little bit, but I'm gonna tell you, you know, when it comes to,
I am just an icon living.
Like I love that. Shout out to the Smiths.
Good Smiths,
absolutely, man. And you know what? His music is really good. You know, we sometimes, you know, the new generation, we you know, we kind of hard on them in terms of the type of music that they have, and but that was actually good. I like the video. I like I like everything he's doing. So shout out to the Smiths, right? And so I want to jump right into one of the segments that I really like when it comes to you know, We Talk Weekly After the Talk, right? It's always about the interviews, and especially if we, you know, as independent, can give an outlet to those who may need our platform, right, to reach more people, right? That's what we try to do here, especially if it's the people, real people that's in the community, that's really in and trying to get people to hear, but sometimes people don't hear them, and we can kind of give them that outlet. Now, what I want to do is preference this interview by saying it's pretty heavy. A friend of mine actually inboxed me on Instagram and was like, yo, you have to see this and reach out to this young lady because, you know, I believe she can really utilize your platform. So I was like, all right, so send it to me. So she sent it to me. And when I seen the inbox and seen the post, it just infuriated. When I tell you how angry I was, you know, not only because I work with, you know, kids and youth, but I'm in childcare, and I realize that it's individuals that sometimes, you know, when children often need a place to go and need to be in good places and spaces, it's a lack of that. But when you have children that potentially can go to great places, you know, they need to be protected and go to those places. And no politics should stop that or hinder that, right? Now, I just wanted to preference that because I am going to try to get into some of the really heavy questions because I know a lot of people want to know that. But Dr. Harris, I'd like to introduce you to the show.
Welcome.
And
thanks for having me.
Yes, and you know, I'll kind of like go through the post, and I'm sure you know what post this is, but I want you to kind of really walk us through what this is, you know, because I know a lot of people who, after this interview, may, you know, try to look this up and research this. They will have a lot of questions, right? And I just want to tell you that we always say that We Talk Weekly, we're independent, and we give this platform to the people, and you're in a safe space.
Thank you.
So that's the first thing I'm going to say, all right? And so just to jump right into this inbox, and I'll make sure you can check it out on We Talk Weeklies because I'll share it to our page, our Instagram. But it says, my soon-to-be adopted child was put into foster care illegally after a white NET, a net worker, net is a agency, community care worker, and DHS made a false safety report that there was no car seat inside the home. See previous posts, and I'll make sure that I'll put that up there. And you can see the young lady, the little baby, beautiful little girl, gosh. In the car seat, you can actually see in the car seat. I'm asking Mayor Jim Kenney to investigate these workers in these net community care agencies. Governor Wolf, she tagged him in it and CC'd the office. They are doing anything to take children and put them into broken system. I am going to fight back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can read everything when I post it. So I want to jump right into you.
Yes.
And I want you to just kind of like walk us through that whole, what this whole issue is, right?
Sure.
And then we'll start the questioning after that. And I have Clay Slate Sparkle here with me. And yeah, we got a few questions for you.
Sure. So the hashtag that I'm using is Justice for Tamia.
Okay.
Some backstory to our situation is that 3 days before this child was born, I was asked to adopt this child by my cousin, my maternal cousin. And at that time, I was actually going through a divorce. And the reason I was going through a divorce was because my then husband did not want any children.
Okay.
So for me, that was a deal breaker, and we both mutually decided to go our separate ways. So long story short, my cousin called me and she said, listen, I have 2 children already that has autism, and I'm working full time, and I just found out that I'm pregnant and I'm further along than I could have imagined.
Wow.
And she told me, would you adopt this child? And that year, I have been praying for a child in 2015. And when I tell you she called me, I immediately said, yes, no doubt, I'm going to adopt this child. I did not know that 3 days later, this child would be born.
Wow.
And I had about 24 hours to get ready for this child, to furnish her nursery. And I was able to do all that because I had already set up my life, meaning that I went to college, I was finished with my degrees, I owned a home, owned a car, and I was financially stable. So I was able to receive this child and just give her love. And we pretty much had a great life for 19 months until DHS stepped in and caused confusion. They pretty much went to court and they basically said no safety visits had been done. Later, they found out that no safety visits have ever been missed, and they made a mistake. It wasn't until I spent thousands on a lawyer that I was able to get the child back at that time. And I thought to myself, even though they made this mistake, we're going to just move forward with our lives and just forget about it and just rebuild, you know? And they did it again, a second time. But this time, it was in retaliation to me filing grievances for the errors that they made. Because when they took my child the first time, they bounced her around to foster care homes where she was hurt and abused. She received a knot on her head that left a permanent scar. And her foster care mother could not afford her diapers. So she received a severe rash that I had to buy medication for while she was in their care. So they were not taking care of her well. I actually had obtained some video which shows in contrast to how she was living with me to how she looked in foster care. And she looked poor, sad, and malnourished while she was under their care. So I was able to get her back, and I was awarded full physical custody at that point.
So, okay, so I want to be fair, and I know people who work at agencies, and especially when it comes to behavioral health, that's kind of like my background, right? And so I know that these agencies generally try to do their best, right? And protecting and making sure that these kids are okay.
Yes.
You mentioned that one of the community workers said or made a statement and said that you didn't have a car seat in a home.
Yes.
I'm a little confused with the in the home situation because you technically won't leave a car seat in a home per se, but in your car you generally keep it in the car. But I just want to jump into that piece real quick. Can you kind of just dig into that?
Sure. So initially we had a visit, our typical safety visit, home check visit on December 8th of 2017. Everything went well. I recorded the video. I have audio and video record. We did a walkthrough of the house. They checked the clothing, the food. Everything went good. Later, we found out that they said that there was no car seat inside the home, that they didn't see typical stuff such as mayo or mustard in the refrigerator, and they saw a lot of TV dinners. So this is what they said per transcript, but you have to think or take a few steps back. Initially, when they removed her, they said it was because I prepaid my bills, and they had concerns about that. Once they realized who I was, someone who was really established and successful and could afford to prepay her bills, they changed their story and said it was because I did not finish adoption training. Once they figured out that I did finish adoption training and I still had my certificates, and this is something that the police investigated. Philadelphia police went to them and said, why was this child removed? They told Philadelphia police it was because I didn't complete adoption training. Then once I produced those certificates, they changed their story. And when we got to court on March 22nd, 2018, for the first time ever, I heard this craziness that there was no car seat inside the house and that they didn't see typical things such as mayo or mustard in the refrigerator. Yeah, they actually said this.
Condiments.
Oh. And they said my refrigerator was too clean. And let me share something about our lifestyle. I have a cleaning lady. She comes out every 2 weeks. And if my refrigerator wasn't clean, that would be an issue because I make sure that have her clean all the appliances. So that's just my lifestyle. I like to have my home clean, and she's been helping me out for 5 years. So it just didn't make sense the way they came at me. But what I realized, it was actual what they call stigmatized racism. When you have, if you imagine we're in court and it's just me by myself. Right. I had a lawyer that I paid thousands for. The judge, Joseph Fernandez, he kicked my lawyer out, said I had no standing. So I basically had to sit in court where they had about 10 people. And
hold on. I want you to just hold that thought real quick, because I just want to make sure that what you're saying, are you okay to talk about this?
Yes.
Without it? Okay. All right. Okay.
Yes,
go ahead.
Absolutely.
Sure.
So there was 10 people in court to my one. And basically, I had to listen to them present all these details, and I was kind of traumatized because I'm hearing this for the first time. They have never reported this type of issue, but what they did was what I call stigmatized racism. You see a black woman, you have a white judge, and you present a scenario of lack, and that's the reason you took this child. But what it doesn't make sense, because you're dealing with someone who's successful, who provided all the child's needs, whose living expenses only account for less than 10% of my income. So I live way under my means. And so the scenario did not make sense. And thankfully, I recorded them on audio and video. I put up signs inside and outside my home for my protection and for their protection, so that we had transparency in the visit. So I recorded the whole visit.
That this is monitored in video. Okay.
Exactly.
By the time they came in.
Exactly. So I recorded the whole video, and I asked the mayor, I said, Mayor Jim Kenney, please, can you see this video? Because I'm afraid for children in Philadelphia if we have workers who are willing to mislead the court just to take a child and put her into foster care.
Now, I wanted to know, like you said that it was your cousin. So this is family,
This is family
that had called you.
Yes.
And is there a process that you have to go through before she hands the baby over? Like, give up her parental rights? Didn't you go through that kind of process before your child was in your home?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So she signed over her rights to me. She voluntarily relinquished her rights. See, what happened was, and this happens to people who are not clear on the processes, my cousin didn't know when she voluntarily gave her rights to me, the DHS went behind her back and obtained legal custody, and she did not know that process.
So had you did it in a private agency
Yes.
for her to sign the paperwork over, the process would have been different.
Exactly.
And the state or government would not have been involved.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes, so she wasn't aware of that. And let me remind you, I'm someone who already filed the petition to adopt, so I paid my own money to petition the court to adopt, and that's still pending, but they went behind her back and got legal custody of her child.
I'm trying to. This is okay. So for me, I'm trying to prevent myself from getting too angry, because for me it sounds.
I have a question about it, though.
Yeah, it's kind of like how could all of this happen? It seems like it's some type of miscommunication, or somebody dropped the ball where all of this stuff is happening.
Or a ball wasn't dropped.
Right.
Is it something on the revenue side? Like, for each case, is it like how prisons are? The more people you arrest, the more money that they get. So the more people that are through DHS, the more the
they're going
government
to get their money
grants.
anyway. They're going to get their money anyway.
But this is another case that financially, if they can take these kids out of homes and put them in the system, grants are given to the government, I believe. I'm not sure. This is just a theory that I have.
Right.
But
one thing that I do know, however, is they're getting paid with the child regardless, whether they're at a group home
but when
or whether
they're
they're
adopted, they don't.
Okay.
They lose financial gain for adoption, but for
yes and no.
Foster care.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Okay.
But I do want to know, because I don't want to bombard the conversation,
Yes.
right? Because I want you to be able to get your
Sorry,
your
Dr.
thoughts. That's all right. That's all right. What goes happening, because we're passionate people, right? And
Yeah.
we really care about the people. And I really want you to get your story out in your ask,
Yes.
right? And so I want you to finish kind of like your story, and then give me your ask.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. So just in general, I filed grievances against them, and they just automatically did not like me. I reported them to the DHS commissioner, Cynthia Figueroa, that listen, they have performance issues. They're making mistakes. I am a senior project manager. I've been watching them every step of the way. I actually put every process that I had to do for this adoption in the Microsoft project timeline, and I made sure to contact them to make sure that they stayed on track. They did not like that, because I wanted to get this process done and completed. Now, if you think back, each time we were close to adoption, they came in and took this child. That something's not right with that. And when you were talking about Sparkle, about follow the money, there has to be some money associated with this, because yes, I was about to adopt her, and then I guess they would have ceased all operations with her. So I do think there's some money issues involved with this transaction.
Possibly. I don't want to. I don't want you to say that it is. I'm gonna just say more than likely, probably. It's a possibility, right?
Exactly.
And so I would like to know, why do you think this is happening outside of the money?
So I think this happened simply because you have a woman who has been on top of them and making sure we're getting the things done, and they just didn't like that. They don't like anyone coming up against them and reporting them. Not only did they retaliate against me, they also retaliated against my daughter because she's been placed in 4 different foster homes with strangers, and she has family who has stepped up and asked to get her. She has an aunt who's filed for custody. She has a grandmom who's also filing for custody. So they have also retaliated against her and have not acted in her best interest.
Wow.
And this is your blood. Like, I'm not saying that every child, but this is someone that's in your family tree, and she's in the system where there's family members that's capable of taking care of her.
Exactly.
I'm just so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when we were talking, they said that, the house was safe, and there was food in the house, and there was clothes in the house. Then why did you take this child?
And clearly from the video, you can tell that this little girl is being taught and nurtured, and smart little girl. She know her colors. I mean, I was amazed, like, 2 years old. So you could tell it's a lot of time that's being spent with her. So kudos to you with that.
Thank you.
So what's your ask?
So what I'm asking for, number one, there's some bigger issues. I always tell people that we're taking one for the team, meaning that I'm a researcher. So what I discovered was that, number one, there's issues with stigmatized racism. You see a black woman and you assume that if they present a scenario of lack that is valid. You don't see a successful woman who has a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a PhD, a 6-figure career, always sold out when it comes to
Black
courses.
girl magic, yeah.
Exactly.
That's right.
So you don't see that. So we have to deal with that and making sure that people are getting the resources they need if they should need support.
Right.
So if support is needed, we have programs available that can help people who need it. The next thing is poor training with the social workers. They actually called in a safety complaint, and then they didn't investigate it. They made a removal decision before investigating the safety complaint. Because if they told me, hey, someone reported that there's no car seat inside the home, then I would say, I keep my car seat inside my car. Let's go out and take a look.
I mean, it's no-brainer, right?
Yeah. Or if they said, there's no mayo in the refrigerator, we don't eat mayonnaise.
How about that?
I'm a pescatarian, so I eat
There
a
you
lot
go.
of seafood and vegetables.
I'm lactose intolerant. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. So if they would have asked me that, we could have
Absolutely.
talked about that, but they didn't. And that's what,
Accusatory other than a question.
Yeah.
exactly. So.
Sound like a lot of assumptions.
And then the third thing is, when we got to the court, you would think there would be a fair hearing. Well, they kicked my lawyer out, someone that I spent thousands on, so it was not fair. So we have bias in the judicial system that, every family should have a right to a lawyer.
Wow. Yeah, man, this is heavy, and this is why I wanted to make sure that you came here so you can kind of get all of that out. I do want to play devil's advocate, right? Because myself, I have been told I'm as pro-black as it comes. I love my people,
Right.
and I love my women, my sisters more than anything,
does.
right? And so, you mentioned systemic racism,
Yes.
and you mentioned this white networker. Just some of the heavier questions. One could potentially say, we're playing the race card.
Yep.
How would you respond to that?
I would respond to it just like Maxine Walters would say, reclaiming my time.
I know that's right.
Listen, if I have to play that card, I will. But if you see a black woman and I didn't get to speak and tell my story of who I am, and they were able to present the scenario of lack when they know that, number one, I have receipts. That's number one.
Got the receipts.
Got the receipts. Every purchase I have made since 2015 for this child, I have all the receipts. I can count for every transaction, every piece of furniture. So that's number one. They presented the scenario of lack, and they did it because I'm a black woman, and they were presenting to a white judge. Now, had I had the chance to speak, I could have been able to share. None of this makes sense. If you know my story, you know my financial background, we live way under our means. We, less than 10% of my income goes to living expenses, then that doesn't make sense what they try to present. So I'm going to play that card because they pulled that card.
So what would your advice be to someone else that may be in this situation? If you're looking back at what you've been through, what you would have probably did differently, what could you tell?
The number one thing that I'm proud of is that I recorded them.
Okay.
This is what they tell you as soon as they come in. Do not record. I tell everyone, put up signs outside your home if you're dealing with the system and inside your home. Make sure they know that the signs are there. And make sure
Signs that say
that you will be audio and video recorded if you step into my home.
Okay.
And it's because of that I feel comfortable with sharing with people. Listen, I have a walkthrough of my entire home that I did on video. I have these workers on video confirming that the home and the child was safe. What they did was malicious and it was retaliatory, and I want the mayor to do something about it to, number one, relieve these workers if they find misconduct, and number two, give me my child back. So that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so, it's so heavy.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you leave, what would you tell, a young lady, a gentleman that may be potentially thinking about adopting? What would you tell them to look out for?
Sure. So for me, and this is where I get kind of emotional. I was someone who always wanted to be a mom, and once I got of age and I finished school, I got married and I wanted to have children. Unfortunately, the first time I had a miscarriage. And, I made a promise to myself and to God that however God chose to bless me, I will receive that and I will accept that. And, for me, adoption has been a blessing. I still do not regret attempting to adopt this child and providing her the best life possible. That's something I would never regret. So I would tell people, just document everything as you're going through this process. Stick with them. Make sure that you do everything you're supposed to, and also have them sign off that you did everything you're supposed to, and proceed with that. So to me, adoption changed my life. Since 2015, I have been the happiest with my daughter. She's my world, and I can't wait for us to be reunited. And I'm believing in God that it's going to happen soon.
That's right.
Good girl. Good girl.
That's right. Well, can I say something? You are a mother. Yeah. I have 4 children of my own, and what you're doing is what a mother does. You have not given up. Yep. You have fought, and you're not going to give up until you get your baby. That is what a mother does. Yeah. And I just applaud you and commend you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we'll stand by you. We'll use every resource that we have to reach out to the necessary people that we believe. In fact, before I got here, I reached out to a couple people in making sure that they hear your case and see if it's something that they can do to help you. I do want to say, however, that all agencies are not bad, and that there are, unfortunately, some bad people out there that really abuse and neglect these children.
Yes.
Yep.
This young lady isn't one of them.
No. That's right.
And so I'm at a loss of words. I wish the best for you, and we'll pray for you.
Thank
and
you.
whatever you feel like, again, we can help. Because remember, I reached out to you. I said, we go on air at 7:00. I would like you to come. She sent back, I'll be there 6:45. That's facts.
That's
we
right.
keep it a bean here.
Yeah.
Am I lying?
Yep, that's true.
That's what she said. I
But
said,
it's-
that's great. We here
Mother-
for you.
Mother
Thank
for
you.
her cup.
Yeah.
And if y'all want to learn any more information, I
Yeah,
have
there
a
we go.
blog called Legally Kidnapped. It's on my website, drtamierasharris.com.
Right.
And you can look up more. And I give a lot of details. I share a lot of personal details from our first day where I held her. And I did skin-to-skin contact with her. So, just visit my website if you want to learn more information.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to the
Thank
show.
you. Thank you.
We love you.
All
We
right.
appreciate you.
Yes,
we love our
thank
people.
you.
Thanks for sharing and
Thank you.
being, fully open and bear that, because I know how hard something like
Yes.
that could be. I work with kids and I work with and this is why I understand I work with a lot of parents who has adopted children or taken children that's in foster care, and they're fostering children. So I get it and I understand it. And so again, we'll reach out. We'll do all that we can do.
That's
and
right.
I mean, you shared everything with us, but we wouldn't be We Talk Weekly if I didn't ask you this one last question.
Yes.
I'm going to lighten it up a little bit. All right? Got to lighten it up a little bit.
Okay.
Gosh, I had to lighten it up. I'm sorry. So, we ask every guest this one question.
Yes,
all right?
he does.
Tell us one thing that no one else knows about Dr. Harris that you could tell us here on We Talk Weekly.
You know, I'm interested in being able to explore the world. You know, I was a workaholic before my daughter was born. And I have like 5 trips planned, and hopefully I'll be able to bring my daughter in the future. So I'm believing in that, and I'm believing in just being a lifestyle entrepreneur where I'm able to explore the world. And I'm going to share that journey on my website, drtamierasharris.com.
Fantastic.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of
gonna
pictures.
happen. There you go.
That's right. Tag us.
Wow. Well, there you go. Have it, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy, Charles Gregory with the beautiful
Classy Lady Sparkle.
LaurenSizzle will be back in a minute as we go into the boring section.
Stop.
Something like
I
love
love it.
and all this other kind of stuff. But we'll be back after this, man. So smile a little bit, love a little bit, and we'll be right back after this.
I